For coming here at the round table. You have found the room. Of course, we are very, very happy. I don't know whether you have assisted to other conferences in France, but we are very happy to have you here in a room to animate a round table with some interlocutors who are here with me. We have a video conference. We have assisted to the virtual FIC previously, and this is very, very nice to see you in presence today, so we can all share this little pleasure. Today we are going to talk about a topic that unfortunately will put us back in time with the pandemic and the teleworking. Of course, teleworking has been already used before the pandemic and has been implemented more during the pandemic and in the last months. But what do we have to say about security? Because security is the worrying and the concern for our companies and associations and enterprises. So we have around us here with this round table, which is squared, Anthony Lair, Sébastien Jean-Jean of the OTXEO, and he will share his experience because teleworking has not been a novelty for the situation, the health situation previously. Manuel Boy, the Concepture, a German company. So we have the pleasure to have here an international presence. And then Boris Lecard, that is the head of France Cloudflare. He will talk about security of this backdoor of the enterprises. And then perhaps we're going to have a video connection. Yes, we have a video connection, Chapuis Leclan from Gensport. You know him, which is a platform and a company of the enterprise social networks. He will explain us what this is about. So working in mobility, working in teleworking, this is something that we all know. Co-working also we know. And, you know, the enterprise must be flexible to guarantee the information stocked and exchanged and to assure the entire information system. So Sébastien perhaps can start to make us understand how you have worked and how you have faced this issue and which are these doors in our enterprises. Yes, good morning everybody. I have to excuse myself first of all because the president of our company could not come, and so I am replacing him as general manager, but unfortunately he's sick. But everything is okay. Don't worry. He's just normally sick. So teleworking is not for us something that we have discovered in the pandemic. In the pandemic, everybody has discovered the teleworking, but in our company, we have virtualized some materials, and we have been doing that for years now. We have done, we have chosen the teleworking has not been imposed to us. However, we have met some difficulties, and all the people that did not do teleworking before now know what difficulties these are. I mean, on the security aspect, but also on the side of how to use the computer and teleworking. We have to see this mutation, let's say, as an opportunity more than as a difficulty. So we have to see the enterprise, the company, as a massive digitalized enterprise, as a virtual environment in which we can get access to an entire lot of information that we had previously in reality. We were going physically to another office to work with our colleagues and to find information that we could not access from our homes or from our office. So the enterprise, the massive digitalized enterprise, the massive cloud enterprise has to be secure. How this can be possible? In our company, we decided that the rules had not to be different from the rules in presence. I mean, everything has to be automatic, whether I was in the office or I was at home. So when we start doing a distinction between home and office, we are penalized. Some employees, when they are in the office, they have more information, more contacts, they can access more information. And if they're home, they cannot do that. So they are going to be penalized. And so we decided that we had to dictate rules that could be the same to all and could be applied to all situations. These rules have to be put at different levels. For instance, we have to establish some rules to see who has the access, has the right to access which type of information. So we had to delimit what was physically delimited in the past to be delimited virtually now, and we had to give different types of access according to the role and the function of each employee. Once we have given this type of information and this difference in terms of people and roles, we have to analyze the environment and the access to the information. So in our company, employees are working from their homes. Others are, posted somewhere for commercial reasons. But the idea was that they could access information which was in a cloud. And if we want to securize, to put all the necessary security element in our company, we have to know how the cloud is administered. For a French enterprise, for instance, this cloud has to be European. So in our company, this was one of the main points. We had to stock data in a place chosen, sovereign, and mastered. So the environment was mastered, because when we are in our homes on our domestic network, well, we have the smart TV connected to the network, we have other elements connected to the internet network, and so we are going to have some interaction of these elements with the professional computer, and we want to have the minimum possible of interaction. So in our company, we have put a certain level of rules. For instance, in terms of networks, you have access to the enterprise through a VPN, as you usually do that from the office. So you have access via a VPN. So this will allow us to get access to the data that we have the right to access. Now, the third main access was to raise awareness, because when you have people that are not in a normal environment, because in an enterprise we can understand the usage of things, but we are virtually deployed in our homes. The employees have to have information via a secure mail, for instance, and this mail has to be opened by the employee. So this has to pass via the users, via the employees. They have to understand the things that are at stake there for the security. And I think that the others too will talk about that, the other speakers here. So I would like to give the floor to my partners here, to my speaker partners here, and then I will go back to tell you what we did to make the environment secure. Thank you, Sebastian. I have said it already, but we will keep 15 minutes at the end so that you can have some time to ask questions to our panelists. Now, Sebastian has explained the security environment, how they have put in place their vision. So I can move to Boris and ask if these doors can be secured this way, or how they do it. Well, I have had the possibility of opening a branch a year ago. I am General Director of Flatfare, and we had been lucky to open a branch in teleworking. So we have to recruit. I have been lucky because I could recruit the people, and I had to interview them, and I had to interview them in view of teleworking. So you have to have a strategy, because these people must be productive very soon. So you have the market side that is very strong, because when you join an enterprise, you must understand how to work in an enterprise, and when you are doing that in teleworking, this is going to be more difficult. When you go the first day to an office, this is a very strong moment. This is something that remains in your life. But when you are doing that from teleworking, it is a different story. So we have started to work in Cloudflare in this new office, this new branch a year ago, and it had 17% of all the internet traffic, and this is a target that is privileged by all hackers, because they could just get a medal because they could access a sensitive company with sensitive data. And this was something they would work to do that. So we had to secure everything, and we had to explain our employees what phishing was and how not to be the prey of phishing. In my career, I had been lucky to work in the digital companies, the biggest in the world. I leave you guess what this company was, but I had a problem in doing the recruiting and the onboarding, because for the people to be productive, it takes 2, 3, or 4 weeks, because every enterprise built its security in a perimeter way, let's say, with a wall surrounding the enterprise, with a sort of guns on the wall that can shoot people outside the wall. But when you are already outside the wall, because you are not physically present in an office, you have to know how to use the means. The models have to be changed, because today resources are everywhere. We do not have people just inside the companies. We have the cloud, public cloud, we have the SIS, we have applications that can be put on the cloud, public cloud, we have data centers, we have private clouds. We have data centers with different levels that can be given to the different employees. So finally, we have resources distributed everywhere and users that can be distributed everywhere. So we have to revise completely the perimeter security wall that we had built around our physical company. I have experimented that in concrete. I mean, when I came to Cloudflare, I have my GSM, my computer, but they told me that my computer could not be used anymore. I received my new computer from the company, and I had different access to all the different applications and an authentication that was done in real time when I connected to the application wherever I was. So this approach, which we can call 06 or whatever. This is a new paradigm, because all connections, when you access, had to be authenticated and put in a secure environment. But this requires some agility, some flexibility. People had not used the VPN before. Once we knew the VPN, we could access other, other websites. I mean, if you are in a new country and you don't have a VPN, you have some latency. So it's a completely new paradigm, I tell you. Thank you, Boris. Manuel, you have been so kind to participate in this roundtable. We'll have a different vision, or you have the same vision as Boris on the security of these doors. What do you see in Germany? Is the situation the same or different on this type of doors or windows, or this new network of the enterprise via the internet?
I think I bring my, just get this away. Thank you. My own perspective on this is maybe a little special, because in Germany I'm consulting critical infrastructure. So these are very conservative companies. I'll go into that in the moment. But first of all, I want to thank you for having me here. And this is my first time here at the FIC, and I just want to tell you all that for me it's really flashing. I think this is I haven't seen that anywhere. Cybersecurity in that sense, the whole city, Lille is vibing of cybersecurity. This is just so unique. I'm so proud to be part of this and to be here today. Thank you so much. And all right, just to give you a little bit of a background of what I'm doing, I'm founder and CEO of Concepture. Concepture is a security consulting company in Germany. Our clients are mainly critical infrastructure. That means they're not very agile. So they are airports, energy providers, power plants, nuclear, fossil, renewable energies, grid providers, and hospitals and things like that. So they're kind of slow in change. And what we're doing with them is risk and security management regarding cybersecurity, of course, first and foremost, and as well as physical, because in the critis world, you do have, say, a water supplier, for instance. He has lots of OT components all over the country, if you like to. So this is a little a different setup that we have here, and my experience comes from this environment actually. So we're working in Germany, in Switzerland, and Austria, mainly for the huge for the leading energy providers and so on, and as well as in the world. So. As I said, critis is not really agile, and Corona hit them as it hit all of us, and they needed to move in some way, and some really did, and found their way to a more free way to a new way of working, and others just didn't. You don't read from them who didn't. These are the stories of those kind of left behind. They just didn't move. They stick to email. They stick to meetings, and they just couldn't handle the change. It wasn't possible for them. And why was it like that? It was because, first of all, if you think about water supply providers, they are all over the place. They're not just in a headquarter. Of course, in a headquarter, you do have the marketing department, the sales department. They have all this as well. But of course, you need to have the OT workers who are actually controlling the water pump, the water flow, and everything. And they were working in offices as well, but they needed OT access and IT access and office access, and this was a little difficult. And in some cases, it just didn't work to move to tools like we're talking about today. And in the cases where they actually moved and found their way, they were facing a dilemma. I think this is all over the European Union, but maybe we Germans are very picky about that. It's the GDPR. So when it comes to choosing tools, my clients were kind of stuck between choosing a secure system, secure from a standpoint the brands you know and you trust, like Microsoft, Google, and so on, because they have been there forever. And they just build a trust relationship with you, and between GDPR-friendly systems, which are built in the European Union, which are hosted in the European Union, where you don't have anything to fear regarding GDPR, and the companies were just stuck in the middle in this dilemma. This is what we have. I could go into GDPR later on a little bit more in detail. I would like to pass on right now. Is this okay? Or do you want me to elaborate further? Yeah? Okay. So, okay, let's go into GDPR then. We have just a panel next to us in another room where a friend of mine talks about GDPR in length. But for this audience here, and if we talk about collaborative tools, there's one aspect which is highly important. This is you certainly have recognized that the European High Court has judged in regards of Schrems 2. And the European Data Protection Board has, in June, was it June? Was it? Yeah, the 18th June this year, the court has, not the court, the Data Protection Board, European Data Protection Board, has brought out its recommendations of how to securely transfer data from the European Union to the United States and back. This is particularly important if you want to use a cloud service like Salesforce or G Suite or Office 365 or whatever. And what's really interesting in this regarding collaborative tools is that the only way you can actually do this is by encrypting the data. And for you technicians out there, you know you can't run a cloud, you can't run a collaborative tool, a database where everything is encrypted. Not yet, maybe someday, but we're not there yet. And it's highly hard to manage, particularly because the European Data Protection Board goes further and asks us to, or requests that the cryptographic keys shall be in the hands of the data exporter, say the company here in the European Union who transfers the data to the United States. And this is practically impossible. And yeah, that's just 2 months old. So this is new, and I think it is here to stay. So companies in the European Union are kind of need to make a decision to live with the risk, with a high uncertainty, or just to make a move to European service providers. And for the developers out there, I think this is the best time to just build some apps because it doesn't seem to change. Yeah, regarding security, this might be this is on the other hand of the spectrum. I told you about a dilemma going to GDPR or going GDPR compliant, or trusting the big companies, the big tech companies from the States. We did have some hacks since Corona came along, particularly on that time. We had in Germany the big blue button. I don't know. Do you know big blue button here in France? You know that? Yeah. Okay. It's an open source software in Germany. It's really popular, and it of course got hacked. We had a data exfiltration via formula injection, actually a macro, which is not something we don't know. We know that macros just have an effect, and if you implement Office Libre into Big Blue Button, which it is, you can do funny things with it, and this is why it got hacked. And then we had a huge US service provider, Zoom, with a zero-day exploit. Okay, we can't look into that because there's a non-disclosure agreement on it. But what we had here is a remote code execution. So someone just ran the machines that Zoom was installed on. Microsoft Teams, of course, you probably came across this one. It was a cross-site scripting, which came along because a website was actually packed into an app in a container. We had Slack. Slack was kind of interesting because in the white hat hackers in that case, they bought some cookies on the internet, so some stolen cookies, and this is about social engineering again, where you might go in a little later, Boris. They just called the IT service, the IT admin, and told him that they lost their phone on a party. So and with the credentials, they were kind of reliable. It was trustworthy, and so they got their access. So, to that point, okay.
Merci Manuel. J'ai vu Sébastien hocher la tête, mais je suis sûre que Boris aurait aussi des réactions sur ça. Alors, il faudra que je passe aussi la parole à Paul Giraudon.
I have to give the floor to Paul Giraudon, qui est à distance, who is connected. Perhaps he is going to react, and then we are going to give the floor to Paul later on.
So indeed, there is a dilemma that we met for many stakeholders in France. It was to choose between the well-known ones and solutions that were less known, but who respected the GDPR and who were certified. So I think that we shouldn't see the thing as all white, all black. There is also a gray part. But we need an appropriate solution from the security point of view. We won't be able to secure everything, because everyone knows it. Security won't go with simplicity, because you need to authenticate people. So you need to classify the information, you need to remain critic, and based on the importance of the information, you need to classify it. And for a high level, You need tools that comply with the GDPR, with the ANSI certification, for instance, or its European equivalent. And for everyday life information, you should be able to rely on Office 365 or other general tools. And I would add a point that we shouldn't forget. There is also a lot of emotion on all these discussions on GDPR, and it's really interesting because all users are using Facebook, Instagram, Google without asking themselves so many questions. But we shouldn't forget that there is a local stake, because you have norms to respect. But there is also the world that is at stake, because the success of the cloud is because internet is worldwide, and we won't change that. So the solutions that are working in a fast manner are those who are created by design for the world. And so the response to the threat should be seen worldwide. And at Cloudflare, we decided to have a worldwide network, and that will counter the attacks. The attacker can be in every country. So, for instance, during the summer, we counter the biggest attack with 17 million investigations per second. And we were able to do that because we had a worldwide network, and the attackers were in Asia. So this stake is really important. And that's why we also have solutions such as the data localization suite that will allow us to guarantee that the personal data can't be exported outside Europe, but with benefiting from a cyber security that is worldwide. Because if attackers are coming from the other side of the world, you need to be able to respond to this threat. There is 1.5 million false websites that are created every month. And for these websites, you need to reference them in order to counter them. Because when the mail is coming, when the email is coming in the mailbox, it has to be blocked. I really liked what Manuel said. You need to win trust. You need to win trust with the years, and you need to build trust with the technology, with the encryption, with standards, and with audits. You need to prove, to show that what you have built is complying with the regulation. We are an American company, but we are working hand in hand with the regulation authorities in order to help them to document all these aspects of standards and certification in order to have a technological response for this. Thank you, Boris. So we'll try to connect with Paul Giron remotely. So hi, Paul. Thank you for being here with us. Maybe you have reactions on what has been said so far, and you will present your vision on how to protect the collaborative tools and how to win trust of the public in this field. So I will rebound on the presentation. So we are providing collaborative tools, digital workplaces that are windows. And up to now, we talked about the internal usage of the team. That is one of the usage we have, but we also have systems for people who can access them from who are external to the society, to the company. So real windows that are really open and that we want to open. So I am not with you physically, but in the room there is Raphael, if you want to meet him. Raphael, if you want to say hi. Ah, okay, Raphael is there. So, on the subject touched upon by Manuel, I liked something that is really there in Europe, is the fact that to say that we trust Office because they've always been there, and so this trust is automatic. But from the technical point of view, it is not as simple as it seems. As Boris said, trust, you need to build trust. Technically, but also with the communication. And the more the companies are large companies, the more they are dominant and the more they will be able to communicate on security. And there is a difference between the trust that they can provide and the trust they show. So Tixeo cannot compete with internet giants, but we are trying to deploy the same efforts as them. We are less attacked, of course. We don't have the same results, but we deploy the same efforts. And so for European people, because you know less a company, you trust it less. And because the large companies are more attacked, they communicate more, but they are not more secure from a technical point of view. I think that we need to balance all this vision that we have to say, if I want the GDPR, I need to be a European citizen, and if I'm not a European citizen, I won't have this standard respected. But yes, you can have the ANSI agreements. You can have also other elements that will give you a certain level of guarantee, but you will always be exposed to a threat. We should give the end user the impression that to make him aware of the tool he's sharing, because I often see in this field the fact that we try to open the window rather to first close the window. So we try first to bring comprehension, to bring understanding. There are issues, of course, on which we need to investigate, but we will investigate in a transparent way. We will show the information for everyone to be aware of what has been done, to avoid things, and to make sure that we show the things we do. And it's a common approach, a basic approach. Thank you. Emmanuel, you want to react?
Paul, thank you very much. You said that, you just pointed out that the big tech giants aren't necessarily more secure than small, medium-sized development companies and software companies. I think it's true from particularly from that point that the bigger the tool gets, the more lines of code you actually have, the more developers actually are working on the tool. I mean, when you look into Microsoft or Google or Slack or whatever, you have thousands of people working on the code, or Facebook, who can actually oversee all this code. And they're working, of course, like we all do with libraries, and they're working other people on it. But on the other hand, we must recognize that when it comes to smaller companies, to startups maybe, we need to put lots of emphasis on code review. Something we see actually, unfortunately, not too often. So we find lots of companies, startup companies, who don't put much effort into reviewing their own code from a security standpoint and perspective. And this might be something where the top techs are kind of ahead. But if we're doing that, I think we're really good to go. Yeah, another point is actually when it comes to developing the way we are doing it today, it's a supply chain. So we're picking tools, we're using libraries, we're having things on GitHub which we actually just implement. And very often we see in startup situations that people just pick the tool, implement it, and run it without actually screening the code. And this is where vulnerabilities actually can come in and do come in. I maybe just open the discussion again on this point, if this is okay with you. What are you, Sebastian, actually doing? I'm doing your job now, do I? Oh, sorry, I'm so embarrassed. To secure actually that.
Oui, absolument.
Yes. So we'll continue in French. I think it's essential for a company, a small company, to give guarantees on how the solution is based, how the tool is built. Indeed, it's essential for us because we are not as large as Microsoft or Google, and the fact to find a breach in our tools could be essential for us, whether then for Microsoft it wouldn't be so essential, but for us it is essential. And so we talk about libraries that we integrate libraries, OpenSSL, but also at the level of the code itself. So since we're not perfect, we need to have organism, the ANSI certifications. This is a guarantee, an external guarantee to the company to verify the code, to verify, to pen test, and it will give a trust on what is produced. And we all have a responsibility, because in some companies, some people just follow the move, because when they follow the move, they don't take risks. And I heard that, being confronted with the mainstream solutions, and people told me, yeah, but if I put Microsoft, I am sure that if we have a problem, it won't be reproached to me because I put Microsoft. But you have to analyze. There are other solutions that will be more adapted, more secure for your needs. And I think that at a certain point, by choosing a less mainstream solution but more secure, you will find something that meets your needs, and you will influence the market in order to have more secured solutions. And that's the role of the Clusive, to help companies to raise awareness of stakeholders and to avoid these big trends effects towards a mainstream solution that won't solve your problem. So the occlusive won't help you to choose one solution towards another, but we remain neutral. Our professional association won't make the promotion of one brand towards another, but it will help the companies and it will help raising awareness. We were talking about zero trust, and I like that. We talk about zero trust while we need to have trust. So when we were talking about the development of developers, the code, and the users that we have to make aware of their problems, we often criticize the person that is between the seat and the screen. So you have to know that developers also make errors, and together, by working together, we will find better solutions that respect the GDPR by taking some solutions such as limiting the surface. And I saw that Boris wanted to say something on what Sebastian said. I just wanted to rebound on what Sebastian said. So security in digital companies, but in all companies, should be the first priority. And today, the awareness is very different. Sometimes we think that it's an IT problem, but that's a problem for the whole company at the CEO level, at all levels, because we don't know where the threat will come, when the threat will come, and where the ransomware will come. So we have to raise awareness. And this mission has to be taken by the management at all levels of the companies, because all companies are digitalized today. So the zero trust will help in the lifetime reaction and the detection of patterns that will be on the network that are suspect patterns. So we talked about Salesforce. But when we see something suspect in the traffic, because we have a highest volume in a country, or strange IP addresses, we should be aware of what is happening and we should react in real time. So there is work on raising awareness for employees, but there is also another work on understanding the patterns, and for that the AI tools will help us to detect these strange patterns. This real-time aspect is really important. We were talking about breaches in Zoom and other softwares that will continue. Because we will have breaches, so it's important to react in real time in order to stop the threat. And the last point on the developers, in order to have a better code, you have a theory, you have to have iteration mechanisms that are set up into place. We have an interesting pattern that can be used for other tools. We have our pattern will allow some users to access the blog in a free way. And so for us, these users are really people on which we experiment. So they enjoy a free access and we experiment on them. And these iteration mechanisms are really important on this coding part. Paul, do you want to add something? There will always be the possibility of having breaches. At James Watt, we are tested regularly by clients who are buying our solutions. They use pen testers. In general, they ask for our authorization, and then they give us a feedback that we will take into account, of course. So we trust our clients, and we are in the pattern that has been defined, because trust is secure. I choose the best solution, the best partner, and with the time I will try to see if what I put in place is really secure and is meeting my standards. And this is about tools and usage. If behind me I had a table with the last access codes to GenSpot, it's not because my connection is secure that I won't have a data leak. So we need to focus on the usage and on the code, and we need to well define and to make people understand the levels that of the information, what can be shared, what can't, and on what we can work together, and which information has to be confidential. I think that someone in the room should pass in order for you to ask questions. I will leave Sebastian rebound. Yes, I wanted to add something. You touch upon something essential. So the digital management. I talked about sovereignty, GDPR compliance. You need to manage your code. You need to control your code. As Paul said, when people are doing pen testing on his tool, he will see the breaches and he will be able to correct it because they master this technique, these tools. You need to check if the company will really master their tools. And it is very difficult because some companies don't have the patch in order to correct their breaches. So we talk about sovereignty of companies. We need to understand that it is not because a company is powerful that it is secure, but you need to see the technical team that's behind. Thank you, Sebastian. We have still 10 minutes to answer questions. Do you have questions for our panelists? Thank you. I work at the French playing games. I have a question for the context of connection. People will have to connect to web interface, and a problem that will happen is that you sometimes will want to connect in a personal space. So what is at stake? Can we have technical solutions, but that can bring some complexity? So did you put in place some solutions in order to take into account this problem? So at Tixeo, this problem is a general one. So depending on the needs of security, if the system you connect to is an essential one with a high level of security, you will give more constraints to the user with double-factor authentication, with encryption keys that will be on the company computer and not on the personal computer. Sometimes we can tolerate these kinds of access. We put that into place. I had this problem because I started to work on my personal computer, and then I had access on confidential information, and my computer was the one of my son for video conferences. So the way we manage it at Cloudflare is that we manage it at the DNS level. We short the DNS of the FAE, and we have the DNS in our company in order to respect the standards. And phishing websites are referenced. And the second point is that we also have a level of analysis of the person. So is the person allowed to work on this information from his or her personal computer, yes or no? And we launched for 1 year now the remote browser isolation, allowing to have the browser for essential users on the edge points, allowing to have navigation control that is really important, and to cancel malwares, scripts that are on the browser and on the personal computer. So we are working on the Chromium layers, and without knowing it, part of the navigation can be done on the edge based on the profile or based on the critical aspect of the websites. I am convinced that it's with these solutions that won't limit the users, but are transparent solutions that will solve security problems, because otherwise the user will connect with his one smartphone or will find another way to connect. So what's at stake is to have agility and security.
Well, Paul, well, it is quite rare that these type of questions are asked, because we normally share information in an open way, but in some very closed cases that, in my opinion, do correspond to the subjects that you have raised here, and to very large companies, so a limited number of users in these large companies, well, in that case, we can propose solutions as DNS, as a VPN, as anything else, or as a dedicated workplace or computer on only the people certified to use that connection can have access. Well, we have many times in which we can do that, but it is true that in those cases we have started by reducing the number of people that have to interact, and often this does not correspond to the way in which we use the computer and the connections. Thank you very much, Paul. Is there any other question? Everything was so clear and understandable. No questions from the public? So maybe the panelists can add something. Yes, I would like to say the most important thing is that the human person has to be at the core of security. You can make all the companies secure. If you don't make the human person work in a secure way, you can choose any technical solution, you will always fail. So, because nothing can be secure, 100% secure. So you have to understand that, and this is essential, because if you have a need that is not a critical one, and you give to that need a too securized solution, you will put the user in a very difficult situation unnecessarily, because it's not the case for that specific need. So you have to do that only for the environments in which you transmit confidential information. So you have to put different categories of the information and people. You have to categorize information and people. You have to raise awareness, which is important. You have to be an awareness, a raiser of awareness always. Otherwise, the people that use the system will be your first breach. So the attacks that have multiplied have put that, as their target. It's not at the level of the CEO that you have to make the environment secure. You have to have the secured environment at the level of the least of the employee. So everyone has to be aware of the dangers that they create in what they do, and so they have to be aware of how to transmit and receive information. Yes, we have to fight against the bad habits of users that continue to use a tool that has to be more secure with more limitations, and they do not take care of other normal tools that could create a problem to the secure one. So we have to explain why the limits are posed and are put. If we do not explain that, we will not assure the human security. I mean, the security of the human person. Manuel, do you want to say something at the end of this round table, the very last word? So we have the different structures. We have to move very quickly. We have to put everything secure. What is the final word? The final word to our round table.
No pressure. Okay. Maybe when it comes about choosing tools, when it comes to about, you have a company, you want to choose your collaborative tool, you want to change the way you work, you want to switch to new work, that's one part. If you develop tools, if you develop collaborative tools, you start off, or you pivot, or you kind of, create something. I think, as I said before, the GDPR, I think it's an important thing. Maybe it's in France. I recognize that many companies see the GDPR kind of as a risk-based approach. In Germany, it's different. In Germany, if you, as a developer, think the German market as your market, it's the way that there are companies that are really taking the risk and saying, okay, we work with the US giants, and there are the other ones who are desperately looking for solutions that are completely EU-based. So if you develop something, make sure it's really EU-based. So maybe you don't want to put your product on AWS or something, or Google. So just use a local EU-based company for that. And then you produce something, you design, you create something that really, there are people who are really desperately looking for that. And when it comes to developing, again, I think an important point is that we shouldn't make the same mistakes we have made 5 years ago. So for instance, when it comes to web developing, we have this, we have made some mistakes regarding site scripting and basic things actually. And now we're building websites and putting them into a container and selling them as an app on the App Store. And the same mistakes are happening again there. So we need just to reconsider what typical mistakes have been, and actually it's the same again. So we can learn from them. Another part is regarding open source. In Germany, we have a huge open source movement, open source particularly in critical infrastructure. Many people are just saying, leading politicians actually as well, really arguing for open source. And I do not think open source is secure per se. I just don't believe it. And the big blue button actually just proved it. Open source is not per se secure. You have to do your homework again, go through the code and everything. Yeah, and the last thing I actually said before, it's about the complexity of the system. So the more complex the system is, the more you actually have the possibility of vulnerabilities in the system itself. So you might want to really check what you want to develop or what you want to pick as your collaborative tool. So if you just want one tool, you might just want to pick exactly that one, and not something that can do everything and has access doors all over the place. Thank you.
Eh bien, merci à toutes et à tous d'avoir assisté à notre table ronde.
Thank you very much, because you have participated in our round table. I would like to thank Boris, Sebastian, and Manuel, because they have shared the table here with me. I wish you a fruitful day here at the forum. Thank you.